Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. September 14th, 2022. The day everything changed. The air outside was thick with late summer humidity, but on the rooftop of the Willow Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, a restless breeze kept tugging at the tablecloths and whispering through the city lights. Cars below honked as they crept down Trade Street. Crickets buzzed in the background, nearly drowned out by the soft jazz coming from speakers nestled in the potted ferns. It should have been a perfect night. Or at least that is what I hoped. After 25 years of marriage, I imagined a celebration marked by laughter, familiar faces, and maybe a few tears of joy. I never imagined the tears would be mine, or that they would burn the way they did. My name is Anika. I am 45. That night, I sat at the center of a long white table dressed with flickering candles, surrounded by people who, at least on paper, were my family. There was my husband Terrence, sitting stiffly in his tailored suit. Our son Jalen and our daughter Maya, both grown, chatted politely with cousins I had not seen in years. My sister Charmaine had flown in from Atlanta, bringing her husband and their youngest. Even Terrence's parents made the trip, his mother looking as elegant as ever, his father stone-faced and unreadable. It was the kind of crowd you pull together for an anniversary milestone, a night built on memories and the promise of many more to come. But something was off from the very start. Terrence barely met my eyes all evening. He spent more time scrolling through his phone than speaking to anyone, only half listening when Jalen tried to tell him about his new job. The server brought out the first round of wine, and I watched as Terrence filled his glass a little too full, downing the first sip before the rest of us even raised ours. There was tension between us, an invisible crack that had widened with every passing year, but seemed, until that moment, reparable. I thought maybe with the right words and the right timing, we could patch ourselves together for one more season. Dinner passed in a blur. I remember the overcooked salmon and the way the asparagus wilted on the plate. I remember laughing a little too hard at Charmaine's story about her son's science fair, grateful for the distraction. I kept glancing at Terrence, searching his face for some sign of warmth, some hint of the man I once adored. He was a silhouette backlit by city lights, untouchable and unmoved. I tried to convince myself that maybe he was simply tired or overwhelmed. Maybe he would say something kind once the attention shifted our way. The server brought out the cake, a simple chocolate sheet with Happy 25th, Terrence and Anika, written in delicate white icing. Maya led a toast, and for a moment I felt a pang of hope. My daughter's voice was soft but strong, reminding everyone of the love story that had brought us all together. Then, as the last words of her toast faded, Terrence stood up. He straightened his tie, tapped his glass, and looked around the table as if he were about to deliver a speech worthy of a heartfelt film. He did not toast me. He did not thank me for loving him, or for raising our children, or for the sacrifices I made to keep our family afloat during the lean years. He did not even look at me. Instead, with a careless shrug and a faint smile that made my skin crawl, he said, "I regret marrying you." His words sliced through the night, louder than the music, sharper than any knife. I felt my heart drop into my stomach, the air sucked from the rooftop. For a moment, no one moved. The clink of glassware and the hum of conversation fell silent. There was a split second where I waited for him to laugh, to claim it was a joke gone wrong, but he did not. He sat down, poured himself more wine, and turned his attention back to his phone as if nothing significant had happened. Jalen stared at his father, then at me, unsure whether to intervene or pretend he had not heard. Maya looked at her plate, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Charmaine's mouth fell open, but she did not say a word. The rest of the table, Terrence's friends, cousins, and even his parents, shifted uncomfortably, as if it was not their place to get involved. I did not cry. Not then. My face felt frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the table, so hard I thought I would snap the silverware. I swallowed hard and focused on the flicker of candlelight, so I would not lose myself in the swirl of humiliation. All those years, all those birthdays, holidays, and late-night talks when the children were finally asleep, flashed through my mind like a cruel highlight reel. I had built my life around Terrence, shaped myself into the woman he said he wanted, only to find out in front of everyone that I was never enough. The rest of the night passed in a haze. The laughter faded, replaced by forced small talk and awkward glances. People left early, murmuring apologies and promising to call. I hugged Maya and Jalen goodbye in the parking lot, pretending not to notice how Maya's eyes filled with tears or how Jalen stiffly patted my shoulder instead of hugging me back. Terrence drove us home in silence. I watched the city fade behind us, wondering how I had missed the signs that had been there all along. At home, I went straight to the guest room. I did not want to hear his voice or see the satisfaction in his eyes. I undressed in the dark and lay on top of the covers in my party dress, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed with texts from Charmaine. Each one asked if I was all right. I did not reply. How do you put that kind of pain into words? How do you tell your sister that the man you gave your life to regrets every minute of it? The next morning, Terrence left before sunrise. I heard the door close softly and the faint jingling of his keys. No note, no explanation, nothing but the lingering trace of his cologne in the hallway. I wandered into the kitchen and stared at the empty coffee pot, remembering all the mornings I had brewed his favorite blend before he went to work. I poured myself a glass of water and sat in the silence, unsure what I was supposed to do next. The days blurred together. Terrence started coming home later and later, sometimes not at all. When he was there, he barely spoke to me. He spent most of his time in his office, or out on the porch talking on the phone with people I did not know. I stopped cooking for him and stopped waiting up for him. I started eating dinner alone in front of the television, the volume turned up so I would not hear the emptiness echoing through the house. Bills began piling up. I found credit card statements for restaurants and boutiques I had never visited. There were hotel charges that did not make sense. When I confronted Terrence, he shrugged. "You know the truth now," he said, not even bothering to meet my eyes. No point pretending. He did not care about the money or the lies or the hurt he left in his wake. He wanted to move on without the burden of me. I tried to reach out to Maya and Jalen, hoping they might offer comfort or clarity. Maya answered my calls but always seemed distracted, promising to visit and never following through. Jalen was even more distant, responding to texts with one-word answers or not at all. I wondered if Terrence had poisoned them against me, or if they were simply ashamed to be caught in the middle of something so ugly. The loneliness pressed down on me like a weight I could not lift. Work became my only refuge. I poured myself into my job at the nonprofit, taking on extra hours and volunteering for every committee I could. My boss, Miss Green, noticed the change but never pried. She offered me a quiet smile and a few days off, which I refused. I did not want time alone. Alone was dangerous. Alone meant remembering all the ways I believed I had failed. The only person who checked on me regularly was Miss Eloise, our neighbor. She was 72 and retired, always up early, always baking something. Every Sunday, she knocked on my door with a warm cobbler or a basket of biscuits and insisted I eat with her on her porch. She never pushed me to talk, but sometimes I found myself confessing small pieces of my sadness while we watched the sun set behind the maple trees. "You are still here," she would say gently, as if that was the only fact I needed to remember. Nights were the worst. I lay in bed, tracing the cracks in the ceiling and replaying Terrence's words over and over in my mind. I started losing weight, my appetite fading with each new disappointment. My skin grew dull, my eyes looked hollow in the mirror. Even Miss Green started to notice. She quietly suggested I see a doctor, and I did. The doctor prescribed antidepressants, but I left the prescription unfilled on my nightstand for weeks. I did not want to be numb. I wanted to understand how it had all gone so wrong. I started to suspect there was someone else. Terrence had a new phone, one he guarded closely. I found a gold earring on the passenger seat of his car, one that did not belong to me or to Maya. When I asked about it, he said nothing, just tossed it into the glove compartment and walked away. There was a new cologne on his skin, new shirts in his closet, and restaurant receipts for dinners for two. The final straw came on a cold Thursday night in November. I came home early from work, hoping to beat the rain. I opened the door to find Terrence packing a suitcase in the living room. He barely looked up when I entered, zipping the bag with practiced efficiency. "I will be gone a few days," he said. "Do not wait up." That was it. No apology, no explanation. I realized then that I was waiting for a man who was already gone. I sat on the kitchen floor that night, knees pulled to my chest, listening to the rain drum against the window. The house was quieter than ever, stripped of even the illusion of partnership. I thought about calling Charmaine, but shame kept me silent. I let the darkness settle in, wrapping around me like a shroud. For the first time in my life, I wondered if this was all I would ever have. If maybe I had used up my quota of happiness in some forgotten season long ago. But something shifted in the silence. Maybe it was the sound of the rain or the way Miss Eloise's words echoed in my mind. You are still here. Maybe it was simply survival instinct kicking in when the pain became too much to bear. I stood up, washed my face, and looked at my reflection in the kitchen window. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me, eyes rimmed red, hair wild, cheeks hollowed by grief, but she was still standing. The next day, I opened a new checking account in my name only. I called the lawyer whose card I had tucked away months before, a black woman named Patrice who specialized in quiet divorces. We met in her small office on Beatty's Ford Road, the air thick with the scent of old books and lavender oil. Patrice listened to my story without judgment, her eyes steady and kind. We will do this on your terms, she promised. No drama, no public spectacle, just freedom. I started gathering evidence. Bank statements, credit card charges, photographs of the earring, and a printout of the text Terrence sent me by mistake. Dinner at 8. Cannot wait to see you. Patrice moved quietly and efficiently, filing the papers with precision. I did not tell Terrence right away. I waited until everything was in place, until the apartment in Raleigh was ready, until the inheritance my aunt left me was safe and untouched. When I finally handed Terrence the papers, he did not yell. He barely reacted. Figured it was coming, he said, already looking at his phone. I walked out with 2 suitcases and a small box of memories. My wedding ring. Old photographs of the children. A necklace Maya made for me in elementary school. I left the house key on the counter. The apartment was small but bright, with a view of the city and enough space for me to breathe. I started working from home, building websites for local nonprofits and picking up extra contracts on the side. The money came slowly at first, but soon I was making more than I ever had before. I paid off the debts Terrence left in my name, one by one, erasing his shadow from my finances. I bought a new coffee maker, a set of blue dishes, and a plant for the windowsill. On Saturday mornings, I opened the windows and let fresh air sweep the rooms, as if I could air out the old life and invite something clean and honest to take its place. Maya visited once, her eyes full of questions she could not quite ask. We ate takeout on the floor, laughing at old stories and avoiding talk of her father. She looked around my apartment and said, "It feels peaceful in here." Jalen sent a card for my birthday. No return address, just a note inside. "I am sorry, Mom. I love you." I cried over that card for days, letting the sorrow bleed out in silence. 3 months after I left, Terrence moved his new girlfriend into the house. I heard about it from Charmaine, who heard it from a neighbor. 2 months later, the girlfriend left, taking his credit cards, his piece, and his new car. Word got around that she was married, too. Terrence started calling. At first, his messages were cold, laced with anger. Then they softened, became desperate. "Can we talk? I am sorry for how things ended." But never, not once, did he apologize for what he did. I never answered. I changed my number, blocked his email, and told Patrice to handle any further contact. The weight that had been pressing on my chest began to lift. I started sleeping better. I took walks in the park, joined a book club at the local library, and went to brunch with Miss Green on Sundays. Miss Eloise sent me recipes in the mail, her grandmother's pound cake, her sweet potato pie, and I tried them one by one in my quiet kitchen. For the first time in years, I felt free. My days had a shape that belonged only to me. In the mornings I worked with a cup of coffee at my side, and in the evenings I read on the couch until the words blurred and sleep pulled me under. I kept a small box on my dresser with things that reminded me of who I was before. A theater stub from a play Charmaine and I saw in college, a seashell from a family trip to the coast when the children were young, and a photograph of my mother standing in the sunshine with her head thrown back in laughter. Sometimes I took that photograph in my hands and tried to remember the sound of her voice. I imagined what she might say if she could see me now. I imagined she would tell me to keep going, to guard my peace fiercely, to honor the woman I had fought to become. The last time I saw Terrence was nearly a year after the dinner. I was picking up coffee at a cafe near the old house when I spotted him sitting alone at a corner table. The same restaurant where he humiliated me in front of everyone. He looked older and heavier. His eyes were ringed with regret. He did not see me. I stood there for a moment, remembering all the pain and all the nights I spent questioning my worth. Then I turned and walked away, my head held high. The door opened to the morning light, and the air felt light against my skin. In Raleigh, The apartment began to feel less like a stopgap and more like a home. I changed the curtains to something airy and white. I framed a few photographs. Maya grinning with a ribbon in her hair, Jalen squinting into the sun on a beach long ago, Charmaine pretending to be serious with a teacup raised in mock elegance. I painted one accent wall a warm, muted blue and bought a second-hand armchair that hugged me when I sank into it. I learned the pattern of the city buses and the rhythm of my neighborhood's mornings. The dog walkers, the joggers, the mail carrier who waved through the glass. Sometimes, on the phone, Charmaine told me about Atlanta and the bustle of her block and the little things that make a life. A neighbor's new baby, a church fundraiser that went better than expected, a recipe she tried and swore I needed to make. We did not always talk about the hard parts, but we did not run from them either. Maya started calling more often. She talked about work and friendships and her fears about the future. Some days she was bright. Other days she was fragile. We learned how to meet each other where we were, without apology or pretense. Jalen took longer. Months went by with little more than a few messages. Then one evening he called. I was in the neighborhood, he said, and I thought maybe we could get dinner. We met at a small place with wood tables and soft lighting. He watched me carefully over his plate. I did not know what to do that night, he said finally. I did not know who to protect. I told him he did not have to choose. He only had to be honest with himself. He nodded, swallowed hard, and said, I am trying. The first winter in the apartment, I bought a thick throw for the couch and a set of string lights that made the living room glow. In the evenings, when the wind rattled the windows, I wrapped the throw around my shoulders and read until my eyes were heavy. I donated the dresses I wore to anniversaries I no longer wanted to remember and kept one black sheath not because of the memories attached to it, but because I liked the way I felt when I wore it. Sleek, simple, sure of myself. I did not rush to fill the silence. I learned to let it be. I learned how to hear the difference between loneliness and solitude, and how to honor the second. On the anniversary of that rooftop dinner, I took myself to breakfast. I sat by the window with a plate of pancakes and fresh berries, and I watched the city move. A woman in a red coat laughing on her phone, a man pulling a toddler in a wagon, a student hurrying past with a stack of books pressed to his chest. I thought about the woman I had been and the woman I had become. I thought about the words that almost broke me and the quiet that helped me rebuild. I breathed in the smell of coffee and butter and cinnamon and felt the simple wonder of being alive. Sometimes I wondered what Terrence told people about me. Sometimes I wondered what story he told himself. But most days I did not wonder at all. I let the questions drift out of my mind like breath on a cold morning, visible for a second and then gone. The work continued to grow. I took on larger projects, redesigning a community center's website, building a platform for a local health initiative, creating an online home for a literacy program. The people I worked with trusted me, and I was careful to be worthy of that trust. On certain afternoons, Miss Green and I walked after lunch and talked about everything and nothing. She asked me once if I would ever date again. I said I did not know. There is no deadline, she said. Only the life you want to live. I held on to that. Spring came soft and green. I opened the windows and let pollen settle lightly on the sill while I aired everything out. I planted herbs in small pots and lined them up on the ledge: basil, mint, rosemary. I learned which corner the sun favored and pulled a chair there when I needed warmth. Charmaine visited and brought a tin of tea and a set of napkins she found at a market. We sat at my small table and talked long after the tea went cold. Before she left, she hugged me hard. You are doing it, she whispered. You are really doing it. Some nights I dreamed of that rooftop and the moment Terrence spoke. In the dream I sometimes shouted back. Sometimes I left mid-meal and took the stairs down and down until I reached the street, cool air on my face and the whole city unfolding around me. I always woke up a little lighter. In the quiet of my room, I finally filled the prescription the doctor gave me months earlier. I did not need it for long, but I needed to know I was allowed to care for myself in every way available. There was no shame in reaching for help when I was tired of carrying everything alone. On a summer evening, Jalen came by with a grocery bag and cooked for me in my kitchen, moving with the careful confidence of someone who had memorized a recipe. Maya told me you like lemon, he said, zesting a bright yellow rind into the pan as steam rose and the room filled with the scents of garlic and thyme. We ate at the table with the window open. He told me about a trip he hoped to take. I told him about a project I was proud of. We did not talk about the past, we did not have to. It was there between us, but it did not block the view forward. Later that week, Maya called and asked if I would help her choose paint for her apartment. We spent a Saturday afternoon with swatches spread across her floor, laughing at names like Morning Fog and Quiet Tide, holding colors up to the light and imagining the rooms they would become. These were small things, but they were the bones of our new life together. One afternoon, I ran into Miss Eloise in the grocery store. She was holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "For your kitchen," she said, even though I had not told her I needed flowers. I put them in water the moment I got home, and the room brightened as if someone had turned the sun a little closer. I kept a journal and wrote a few lines each night. Not always profound things, sometimes just what I cooked or what I read or what made me smile. Over time, the entries stitched themselves into a quiet testimony. I was here, I kept going, I made a life. My name is Anika. I am 47 now. I drink my coffee in silence and sleep in a bed no one lies in but me. Sometimes I laugh at how peace does not make noise, but it certainly echoes. The pain did not kill me. It did not even finish the job. In the end, I found something better than revenge or applause. I found myself, still here, still standing, and finally gloriously free. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.